What's the biggest lesson life is teaching you right now? My name is Jake Thompson, your Chief Encouragement Officer, and this is the Compete Everyday Podcast, a show designed to encourage and equip ambitious people with the tools needed to build a winning mindset, career, and most importantly, a winning life. Good morning, competitors. Jake, your Chief Encouragement Officer. I'm excited to start the day with you. We headed to the gym, we headed to work, we're going on a walk mid-morning, wherever we are. I'm glad we're hanging out. I got to ask recently at coffee, what's the biggest lesson life's teaching you right now? I had to smile and think about it because I feel like it's a lesson life has been teaching me for quite some time, although it's probably more amplified now as I'm in the throes of writing the next book. It's the idea that what you see online is not always, or often even, as good as you think it is. See, behind every highlight reel is a cutting room floor of mess-ups, mistakes, and start-overs. We don't often think about that, right? We're scrolling social media after maybe a tough day, and we see that friend who's on a yacht in Greece. We see that former colleague who switched companies announcing yet another freaking promotion. That fitness influencer showing off their 8-pack abs, summer workouts, while you're just struggling to get through the gym a couple days a week. Suddenly that day that was good, maybe even okay, suddenly felt terrible, right? We get into the dumps. Our wins feel smaller. Our progress all of a sudden goes from visible to invisible. And in an instant, we feel like we were in control to being left behind. Comparison, the evil thief that robs us, just stole some confidence, energy, and focus before you ever even snapped your fingers. If you're nodding your head right now, it's because you've been caught in the same battle that I have. See, the lesson I've been really having is not that the highlight reels are rarely as good in the real world. It's the fact that I still get pulled into the comparison trap. It's probably one of the reasons the next book heavily focuses on this. We live in this idea of constantly measuring our full, messy behind the scenes against everyone else's perfectly curated highlight. And it happens to all of us, right? Even realizing it, like even knowing it's there, even having guardrails on how you use social media, you can still creep in. It's that, hey, let me just scroll Instagram one last time before I go to bed, and you see a post, and then the narrative in your head starts going, and 4 hours later, you're still not asleep because you're frustrated. Not at that other person, but the difference between where you think you should be compared to them. And the crazy part is in these moments, we're not just feeling bad, we're mentally draining the energy and focus we need to actually improve our own situation. And the worst part is we're comparing ourselves oftentimes to things that aren't real. We're measuring ourselves against an illusion, a carefully curated snippet that hides all the struggles of real life. I had to deal with this, right? I deal with this all the time, just like you do. Literally the last night as I'm recording this, it was that moment, hey, let me just scroll one more time while I'm watching the Stars game. Let me see this event. Oh, that event looks awesome. Oh man, that event would have been fun. Man, that person's just crushing it. Why am I not crushing it like that person? I had to literally go through the process of stepping back and saying, what is the game I'm playing? We're running two different races. Why am I looking at their finish line when I have my own to run? I had to go through a whole reset protocol to end up putting myself in the right position. And then I had to remind myself that it's not often what we see out there that's the reality. I know people out there talking about how they're crushing it, that when you have a conversation with them offline, you know they're not. I know, as I've shared on stage before, if you go back to my Instagram feed from like 2018, it smiles, it's traveling the country, selling shirts, it's doing all of the things, but inside I was dying. I was in the worst place I'd ever been mentally. I was in a hole. I was depressed. I told somebody the other day, it was the only time in my life where I got to a point where I realized why entrepreneurs can kill themselves. I wasn't at that line, but I understood, because when you put your identity into something and you fail at that something, you feel like you're worthless. But if you looked online, you wouldn't see that. And so I have to constantly remind myself of that. The comparison trap that we fall into isn't just frustrating, it's backed by psychological research showing how it undermines our own performance and well-being to improve ourselves. Right? Studies from Columbia found that excessive social comparison increases cortisol, stress hormone, by up to 40% in people that regularly use social media. The chronic stress state directly impairs our ability to make decisions, be creative, and most importantly, be resilient. The things we actually need to do to improve our situation. Another thing, the social comparison theory by Leon Festinger explains that when we have innate drive to evaluate ourselves against others, but what they didn't predict was how digital platforms supercharged that tendency to what researchers now call comparison on steroids. Think about it. 100 years ago, you only compared yourself to those people in your small town and community. Now there's billions of people at the flick of your thumb. A 2020 study found that the average person makes 8 to 12 social comparisons daily, but here's the kicker. Frequent social media users make over 50 per day. Most of them upward comparisons that leave them feeling inadequate. And it's crazy because it's on incomplete information. Stanford researchers found that we consistently overestimate other people's success and happiness by 40 to 60% based on social media. That's a widespread misconception gap. 40 to 60% off. We create these internal fallacies around the narrative, right? We don't just see their success, we create stories of why they're more successful for us, how it was easier for them, how we don't have it right? We're doing all of these things, and the whole while, we're sending all of our energy, our effort, our focus their direction and away from the goals that we care about. The only antidote for this is to stop noticing what others are doing, is to transform how we process and relay that information, right? You're always going to see people. You're always going to see stuff. The key is to stop going from and living in this comparison-based thinking to getting into the competitive-based thinking, right? You can't get on the field and compete and at the same time be comparing yourself. You got to be focused on what you're striving toward. Comparison says, how do I measure up against them? Competition says, how am I making progress against my own potential? So when you're stuck in comparison, you're playing a game you can't win because you're measuring your worst against someone else's best. And the reality is there's someone always ahead of you, just like there's someone always behind you. And so you get caught off in playing someone else's game. But when you shift into competitive thinking, you're playing a game you can win because it's about you versus you. You're looking to beat yesterday, to use your resources, your energy, your focus to make progress. There's ways we can use comparison in a healthy manner to grow. And I got a whole book coming about that. But the reality is most of us never get there because we're living in this unhealthy state and allowing internal stories to dive and direct where we go and what we do. And we're never seeing the full picture with that. The perfect relationship you see on Instagram, they've got their struggles behind closed doors. The entrepreneur crushing it with all the sports cars and things, yeah, they might have rented a lot of those or they're drowning in debt. The person who's absolutely killing it in their career right now, the one who you look at and you're like, oh, I wish I were them. Yeah, they don't get to talk to their family, kids, their spouse anymore. See, we see snapshots and we envy that. We wish we were there, but we don't know the whole story. And oftentimes, if we saw the whole story, we probably wouldn't make that trade. So I want to give you 4 practical steps to break that comparison trap today. As we head into this week, like, how do you use this week to your advantage? What would the next 30 days look like if you got out of the comparison trap and started competing every day? What would that look like for your career, your relationships, your health? How much progress would you make? And so number 1, you got to implement a comparison circuit breaker. Like, you got to create a pattern interrupt that when you catch yourself comparing yourself to someone else, you got to do something to break out of it. If you've got one of our Compete Everyday wristbands, maybe you pull it off and put it on the other wrist. I've seen people do this when they get into like a no complaining challenge, right? Every time you make a complaint, you snap the wristband or you move it from one side to the other. What if you did it when you started comparing yourself? Like, you catch yourself in comparison, I'm going to move it. You start tracking it, right? You do something physical to start to interrupt your thoughts, your patterns, your focus, where you are. Second thing you got to do is establish a personal scoreboard, right? In our framework, clarify what's the game you want to play, who's your competition, and why does it matter to win is about your scoreboard, the game you want to play, the game you want to win, and you got to know that, right? You can't focus on your own race if you actually haven't defined what's the scoreboard I want to start scoring points on in life. And so write them down. What's the game you're actually wanting to play? What does winning in your context look like? For some of you, it's being the best parent in the world and you want to do a great job at work, but you have no desire to climb to that corner office. Some of you want to do your own thing. Some of you want to be able to travel. Whatever winning looks like, you have to live with the results of that game that you're playing. So play the game you want to win. What are the metrics that if you do, the inputs that if you did would help you put points on the board? Is it sales calls? Is it touch points with your team? Is it building up a safety nest in terms of finance or paying off debt? Whatever that is, review your scoreboard every day. What's the game you want to play? Why does it matter to win? And what are the inputs? An exercise part 3 that I love is to create a quote, true story practice. True story practice. What I love is when you see someone else's success and you feel that comparison trigger, immediately write down 3 things. What you actually know to be true, not the story you tell yourself, not what you're assuming in your head. What do you actually know to be true? Number 2, what you suspect might be happening behind the scenes. And number 3, what you can potentially learn from their approach. What do you actually know to be true? What do you suspect behind the scenes? And what can you learn from it? This puts us into a mode of going from passive consumption and comparison into active learning. And when we can make that shift, our brain starts to change, right? The emotions start to change when we go from just consuming to how do I actually learn? How do I engage with this? How do I use this to my advantage? How do I extract valuable insights from their highlight reel to help build my own progress toward my goals? And then number 4, double down on your input control, right? You only control you. Control your controllables. And you can't compare yourself to what you don't see. And so what you have to focus on is what's on my social media account. Who do I need to unfollow or mute, right? Who do I need to get off my feed that I just feel this unhealthy comparison with? How do I set times for how I use social media? One of the best apps that I've implemented this year is an app called Roots, Roots. And I paid for a year membership. And what it does is help you limit social media by putting not only time limits on how long you can access social per day that you set, but you can set windows. See, I can't access social media between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. Why? Because it helps me get up and focus on my priorities instead of getting caught into responding to messages or posting on social or doing this. It helps me in those moments. Occasionally I'll go on there and unblock it. And it gives me like a 3-minute window to make a post, but it sets parameters so I'm not getting notifications and I'm not going on there like I might otherwise, right? Build like a reality check of friends. Get a couple of your friends, just say, hey, listen, I'm struggling with unhealthy comparison right now. I need you to help give me doses of reality. Like check me when you feel the comparison. Call out the things I'm doing well. Remind me of the imperfections in other people's lives that you don't see on social. Get those trusted people to talk the truth. Talk about their own journey, right? That circle that you can trust that help you see it's more than just highlight reels online. The goal isn't to isolate yourself from other people's success. It's about creating the space and perspective that when you see it, you learn from it instead of beat yourself up over it. Here's the truth that I want you to remember. The mental energy you're losing to comparison is the exact energy you need to go reach your potential. The thing you're giving to someone else outside of your control about a manufactured narrative is what you need to go create the realistic future you want to live. And every minute you spend comparing yourself unhealthily to someone else's highlight reel is a minute you're not investing in becoming better or deepening your relationships or growing your career or improving your health or changing your life. You have your own unique race to run. You have your own course to run. You have your own finish line that looks different than other people's. So stop chasing their finish line so you can focus on your own. The next time you feel that comparison pull in, remind yourself, the highlight reel is not the full story. Your behind the scenes is not your final product. And the only person that you need to beat is the one you were yesterday. The most successful people I know aren't the ones who win in every comparison. They're the ones who stopped comparing so that they could compete to reach their own true potential. Know the game you're playing. Focus on your race and then run like hell to go win it. Go win your day, competitor. You know I'm cheering for you.